Okay, thank you very much. My name is Caitlin Booth, and I'm here with Bleeding Cool.
Thanks for talking
Uh,
with us.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I very much appreciate it. I really, really enjoyed the first, I think it was about the first half of the movie that you guys sent us. I guess
A
that was
little
like
less,
two,
but yeah.
whatever it was.
Cool. Cool.
It was
Cool.
great, and I really hope that your marketing team doesn't give away the last half of your movie because I did not see that twist coming at all.
Oh, good.
So well done.
Cool.
One thing that you guys mentioned during the press conference is how you essentially don't like to treat kids as, small dumb adults, and I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you could all just talk a little bit about how you talk to kids in movies, especially dealing with difficult subject matter, because they aren't small dumb adults. They just have a very unique way of looking at the world.
Yeah, totally. I mean, well, I think it's important for any of us in the entertainment business, but especially at Pixar, to kind of remain somewhat tethered to childhood, to remember what that's like and what the world is. But then, it helps for me to have kids. We all, Dana and Kemp as well, have kids. So, just watching them and having them in the back of your head when you're watching something. I know for me that was always the case. When we put something on the screen, I'm like, ooh, what's my kid gonna think? Dana, I've heard you kind of reference that too.
Yeah, and I just love that we ask big questions because I think kids ask big questions. They just say it differently. And so I
Hmm,
think it's really
good way
important.
of saying it.
Uh, am I cutting out?
A
Oh,
little bit. Go.
yeah, a little
We
bit.
can hear you.
So at what point during the writing process did you guys decide to make Joe an African American man?
I guess it was about after. Was it 2 years in? Maybe a little less.
I think a little less because it was before Kemp came
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I think it was right when you decided he should be a jazz musician. Um,
Yeah.
I heard him talk. So it's like maybe a year in.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
But yeah, once we arrived at that sort of job and his passion for it, it felt like the right thing to do. And then we realized, boy, we're going to need a lot of help with this because unfortunately, animation is it's not as diverse as it could be and should be. I think that's changing now, but we really needed to make sure, like everything we do, we want it to be authentic, we want it to be specific, and we couldn't find anybody who was more specific to the character than Kemp. I think we really lucked out in a lot of ways because some of these elements were in play when you came in.
Yeah, a few of them, and I mean, look, it's interesting because I think the most obvious comparisons a lot of people will want to make with this film is Coco, but
Hmm.
but I think that's an unfair comparison because Mexico is its own country with its own very specific culture,
Hmm.
and Joe is an American, but being a Black American means you kind of exist in both those worlds. You both have the very familiar elements of American culture, but there also is a specificity to life as I think any person of color existing in America. And that really comes out, I think, when you see the character of Joe pass through what I call like authentic Black spaces.
Hmm.
Places like his mother's shop, places like a barber shop. I'm from New York City as well, and New York is one of the most diverse cities in the country, if not the world. But every ethnic group within New York City both exists in the whole, but also exists in their own little worlds. And I think elements of that, it was really important for that to really show up in Joe's life. And it's wonderful. Of course, you have to make that serve the story that we're trying to tell. And I think we did a really good job of making sure that that cultural specificity of Joe's life also serves the greater overall story of him and 22 as they go on their journey.
Yeah. Um, so the design of the Jerry's, I'm blown away by those things. They're just that's like the thing I've latched on to since I saw the footage. Like I can't stop thinking about those things. They are just fascinating. Like I would love to know more about not just like the concept, but like the design process. Like I got to talk to your animators about it, and it was like all I wanted to talk about because I just find them absolutely fascinating. Like they're one of the most unique things I've seen on screen in a while.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Well, yeah, again, it kind of grew out of the story needs. We thought, okay, we can't let the souls just run around. They need some sort of shepherding. So, and we wanted to be clear: these are not gods or God. You know, they're kind of the universe manifesting in some way. And I don't remember if it was Afton or who exactly did the first drawings
I think it
as sort of lines.
yeah,
Yeah,
the story. One of our
yeah,
artists started just she had one of the first sequences with the counselor in it. So art and story often collaborate and explore together. And so she just started drawing these weird lines. And then one of the artists, Deanna, saw it and she literally went in her coat closet and got hangers and
yeah.
started sculpting
Super creative.
wire sculptures. And I remember, we'll never forget the first time we saw him in art. She presented, I think she had five, and she just started moving her iPhone around, and you could see with the shadows, like they just came alive in the movement,
Yeah,
and
so
it was
cool.
proved that we could make these characters come to life with personality and in a 3D space. So it was exciting.
So
It
cool.
was a really hard concept to sell, though, I think, because I remember when I first came on board and you showed me one of the wire sculptures, and you're like, and these are going to be the counselors. And I'm like,
Uh,
WTF? Like, what the
yeah.
heck is this? What are you showing me, dude? And it was really hard to kind of conceptualize. But I think what's brilliant about it is in an initial version, all the Jerrys were supposed to have the same voice. Remember, like we
Yes.
even toyed with the idea of Richard Ayoade's voicing all the Jerrys. But the thing is, that gave the impression that they were omnipotent. If all of them had the same voice, you couldn't really believe the idea of Joe or 22 ever pulling any tricks on any of them if they were everywhere and knew everything. So that's when we kind of went to the idea of like, oh, what if it's like they're each their own personalities that could even bicker with one another and make them this kind of international coalition of voices. So I think that really helped the story and allowed us to have a lot more fun and invite lots of different actors in the
Yeah,
whole.
even though Richard Iowata probably is omniscient, it was nice to have multiple other voices in there too. So
And they were just so cool.
cool.
Um, the presentation you guys did was really interesting. I love all of that just behind the scenes and stuff for animation. And you talked about how you had a hard time making the souls look like souls, but not like ghosts. Could you get a little bit more into that design process and just how you take something as vague as a soul and try and make it look like something that a kid could conceptually draw like in their notebook after they see the movie?
Yeah, that was a tough one. I mean, you wanted it. I mean, there were a lot of story restrictions. We needed to be able to say, "Oh, that blue blob is that person," because we had some back and forth going on in the film from Earth to the ethereal world, and we also wanted them to be emotive and fun to watch and sort of cartoony. But yeah, I mean, some of the first drawings looked just so simple that we were worried there wouldn't be enough visual interest, and but we couldn't paint it. So it was really like we put together this bullpen of artists and technical folks who just every week would show us stuff, and every week it would take a step forward or maybe a step sideways, and we just kind of using the computer arrived at this sort of fog ethereal thing, and then we realized, oh wait, or it's going to be hard to see the edges of things, so we came up with the line thing. It was really a lot of discovery, which is kind of the way I feel about making films anyway. I will like, I would love to be a filmmaker like you hear about Miyazaki or some of these people where you have the whole film in their head and they just kind of put it out there. But for me, the process is much more like, wait, what about this? Oh, we better change it. Oh, this person had this a better idea. Throw that out. So it's really like a mushy mess of a process. But I like to think that it makes for better films than anything I could have ever had in my head.
Yeah.
Kemp, I would love to hear some more from you about just how you managed to take, you said you wanted to make this movie authentic to the Black experience, but the Black experience is also unique to various individuals. So how were you able to make this movie feel authentic without just also making it feel like you're only telling a very specific story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, that's not even that difficult. I've always believed that you find cultural hyper specificity breeds universality. You
Mhm.
know, I think that the more culturally or, you know, and the more specific you can get in your storytelling, the more people can actually find the universal truths in those characters. You know, it's interesting. It's a question that always gets asked of Black creatives, but doesn't get asked of a lot of other creatives. And, you know, it probably gets asked a lot of women as well, I'm assuming. But it's like no one questions like, wow, is anyone going to like The Godfather if they're not Italian? You know, like no one would ever, or will people not get into The Sopranos if they're not Italian? Will people not get Woody Allen movies that, you know, well, bad example, but like if they're not Jewish? But the point of the matter is that like there's a certain amount of specificity that really empowers our storytelling and helps us connect to each other. So I never really am worried about it because I feel like the more specific it is, the more people are going to clearly see those universal truths and those universal themes when they shine through.
I'm sorry, but it's all we have time for, Caitlin.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for taking the time to talk to me, and
Thank you.
everybody stay healthy wherever you may be.
Yeah, you too. I'm glad you liked the film.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing the full thing, hopefully in November.
Thank you.